and welcome to the TheROCKATX online worship experience. You're getting ready to experience God on another level. Whatever you're seeking from God for your life is available for you as you praise, hear the word, and transform your situation. While you're worshiping with us, feel free to interact with our online ministers in the chat and share this broadcast with your friends and family so they can join you online. Also, make sure you subscribe and follow TheROCKATX on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram to stay connected to all The Rock is doing. Now, shake off the worries of the week and get ready to give God some praise. Service will begin soon.
God says, okay, I want y'all to go ye therefore and fill the earth. They journeyed east, so they left the ark, and then they had a family meeting. Because they looked there and they said, man, this is the first plane we done had. It's pretty nice over here. Hey, what I think we should do is let's take some of these rocks and let's take some of this mud and some of this tar stuff and let's see if we can mix it together so the rocks stick together. And then, hey, wait a minute now. So if we can get these rocks stick together, we may be able to build something. And we may be able to build something that this thing we build may make sure that we never experience this trauma again. So now the structure, can I be nerdy for just a second? I'll paint a picture for you. The structure of the Tower of Babel is the legal name or the actual name of how they built was called a ziggurat. Z-I-G-G-U-R-A-T. A ziggurat. Z-I-G-G-U-R-A-T. It was like a temple tower. So when people say the Tower of Babel, sometimes in your mind you see it as this straight up building. But a ziggurat was literally a big square foundation because they built it off of, they made the bricks. And then you would make a smaller square on top of the big square. And then you make a little, and then on top of that you build another level would be a smaller square on top of that square. And then you would build up another level. And so if you can imagine, it looks similar to a pyramid in one way, but it was closer to if you look at the Aztec ruins, where you have this stair-stepped kind of process that gets taller and taller and taller. So if you look at your biblical archaeology, you'll see you can find pictures of ziggurats and how they were built up. And so they built this tower was not like the Empire State Building kind of thing. It was this ziggurat where they would build, set a foundation, and then build on top of that, and systematically, and they would build it higher and higher and higher. Now, they were unified, right? One language, right? Now, and they were so unified. They were unified in building. And God said, the Bible says, God said, man, look at man. He's like, man, they got one language, and, they gonna get this thing done. And they say, we're gonna build this up to the heavens. Because the ziggurat was oftentimes built up so that at the top of the stair steps, you would have an altar where you would meet God. So the idea was we want to put it way up there, and we want to build it up so that at the top of this point right here, we meet God. And so there wasn't little rooms on the inside for everybody. There wasn't no apartment building where everybody's trying to hang out. Wasn't condos. It wasn't like that. They were like, if we build it tall enough, when the water comes, we can be up here with God. Makes sense. Makes sense. But I want to argue with you. Listen, that we can. God said it, because this is always an interesting text to me, because God was like, man, they have one voice and one language. They're going to do this. Right? So now that means that you can be unified and successful, but be disobedient to God. Am I making sense? You can be solid. This is what we're going to do. Everybody says it, and God said, no. If y'all unified, y'all going to get this done. And so God said, the only way we can stop them is we've got to confound their language. So then God comes and speaks now. And now they have different languages, and so they're no longer able to communicate. But listen, unification and building usually means success. Am I making sense? So I want to talk to somebody, because that means you can be very unified and very sure about what it is you want to do. Go to the slide where I talk about motivation. I think it's the third slide or something. I want to show you this. It says, sometimes the motive behind activity is greater than the activity itself. They were unified, good. They were building, great. The problem was the motive. They were building, I want to help you on this, out of trauma. The Bible says, they said, let us build. Let us mess around because we don't get scattered. Let's build it tall. Let's build a name for ourselves. Let's build a city for ourselves, because we don't know how this is going to go down. So we got to protect ourselves. Am I making sense? Now, I want to argue with you for just 1 minute that many of us you were watching, you were sitting, you are great builders, but I want to challenge your motive. You have bought houses, cars, you built a career, you put money aside, you've done this, that, and the other, but I want to challenge your motive. Because the issue is not whether the activity is wrong. The question is, what was the motive behind it? Am I making sense? Now I'm going to show you this. Everybody loves a fairy tale. I'm going to show you a little history here. Everybody loves a fairy tale. We like these good stories. They make us feel good. We love great stories because every fairy tale has the magic and the moment and everything else. It's a beautiful thing. We love good stories. Every city that has ever been built was based upon somebody's good intentions and somebody's good feelings. Am I making sense? Now, I want to tell you the story of Austin, Texas. Austin, Texas, for people of color, was a safe haven. Right after the Emancipation Proclamation, and right after General Granger landed on Galveston to say the slaves are free, some 2 years later. The African Americans in Texas had found themselves free. But the problem was, if I'm free, I live in the South, Jim Crow, and I've got to figure out now where is the safest place for me to actually raise my family and be in a nice spot where we don't want no trouble. Because if we go to Houston's an urban area that's growing. If we go to Dallas is an urban area that's growing. If you go to Fort Worth, they're bringing cattle there down from Wyoming all the time. That's a Chisholm Trail. So we don't know if we want that type of population, that type of traffic to be seeing what it is we're doing. So we don't want to go to Fort Worth. We don't want to go to Dallas. We don't want to go to Houston. What's a nice place to go so that we can find a nice little spot where the weather ain't too bad And it ain't too, see, if we go to Amarillo, we got to deal with mountains and deserts and stuff. We don't want to go to West Texas. So what a lot of African Americans said was, listen, you know what's a good spot? Austin. Austin's a great spot because they ain't going to mess with nobody in Austin. Austin's this little bitty town, ain't nothing happening. We can sit there and be quiet, and there's rivers and water and all kinds of creeks and stuff. Man, we can find our spot right there, and we can be good. So many men, many families, many freed slaves moved to Austin area and started what they call freedmen's towns. They began to build these groups where the freedmen would come and they would gather and they would collect and they would be there. So Barton Springs, the Barton Springs Road, Barton Springs, over there by the spring. That was an ex-slave freedmen's colony. Clarksville was a freedmen's colony. 6th Street was a freedmen's colony. 12th Street was, by the Capitol, was a African freedmen's colony. Am I making sense? They had several African freedmen's colonies all around because Austin was a nice, soft place to land. City of Austin decided, though, that, hey, we're going to be big and we're growing, so we got to do something because our problem is when you look at Austin, there's too many of these black African-American freedmen's colonies around. And if we're going to keep up with Houston and Dallas and Fort Worth, we got to make some decisions. Am I making sense? I'm telling you the history. Are you with me? Now, I want you to flow with me here because you have to understand. I know you're saying, Dr. Moody, is this real history? This is real history. So now, the idea was we got a vision. Go back. We had a vision for what we're doing, for building this. But the problem is, it's too many brown people around there. So we got to figure out now how to move them out of the way so we can actually build this land up and make it more economically feasible for growth. And so they thought about it. They thought about it because they said we got to do it legally. And so in 1928, they passed. They got a group of consultants, and they came through and they said, how do we fix this problem? And so they came up with the 1928 plan, or the master plan, to build and develop this city. And in that plan, they said, okay, if we want to move all the Negroes out of the good spots, we're going to have to force them to move to where we want to move. So what we'll do is we're going to develop on the east side of 35. We're going to develop a Negro settlement, and we're going to say, if you want city services, schools, education, sewage, all that kind of stuff, the only place we'll offer it to Negroes is on the east side. And so now they passed the master plan, and so now every Negro who wanted to live in Austin, who wanted city services, had to move to the east side. Now I want you to understand something. Now I'm really working somewhere. Remember, who moved to Austin? The Negroes who didn't want no trouble. Right? You don't want no trouble. I don't want to fight nothing, right? And then those people who moved to Austin didn't want no trouble. When they said y'all got to move over here, they said we don't want no trouble. So we're going to move over here. So now, and they took all the land that they had and sold it to white developers. That's why Clarksville, you can't buy a house for less than what, $1 million at Clarksville. When you see Clarksville pottery, Clarksville was that was literally Clarksville years ago, and so now they did this. Why? Because they said we got to develop this area. So we're going to develop Austin. So we're going to move all the Negroes over here. We're going to take all the land they had. We're going to resell it, redistrict it, so we can blow things up. And guess what? They did it. But they got people who didn't want no trouble, and they moved to a place where they didn't think there was going to be no trouble. And so they already knew that if you live in this territory, by nature, you have the mentality of compliance. That's part of your spirit. That's part of your mentality. So we can just make changes and you ain't gonna do nothing because you don't want no trouble. Because your job is, as long as you can make some sweet stuff every now and then, you don't want no trouble. Am I making sense, anybody? And you all right, as long as they leave you a little bit, so you can make a little bit for your family, and you'll be all right. And that's the heart of what's going out. That's the heart of what's happening to this city. Am I making sense? Now, Dr. Moody, now go to my next slide. I'm going to show you this. Why is this important? Because you've got to be careful. Because you don't know that many of you and many people who are watching and many people who are streaming have learned to build. But you're building out of trauma and insecurity. You just making money because you don't want no trouble. Oh, it's getting quiet in here. You went and bought the house over in the, you just want a little house on the little street in your little neighborhood because you didn't want no trouble. We're not mad at you. You bought the house. We're not mad at you. You're in the neighborhood. But I'm talking about the motive behind the neighborhood, the motive behind you is that you really were building out of, my grandmama told me, if you don't have nothing else in life, have a house and little savings. And if you get a house and little savings, you're all right. You're building, but you're building out of trauma and insecurity. You don't start a business because you're scared. Wow, quiet guy. Everybody's like, what? But you want to buy a house, get your little savings, because the only thing you can do, if nothing else, is you can pass down this house to your kids. So you're building, saints of God, but you're building out of trauma, insecurity. You just want a little place with a little retirement because you don't want no trouble. So now, rather than say, okay, now I'm in a situation where maybe I can leverage some money to start another business, make some money, what you do now is you count your pennies every day. And you say, today I spent 20 pennies, so that's 20 less than I have. And if I average this out over the span of my life, I got enough pennies to last me until 85. Ooh, what I better do, I better only spend 18 pennies tomorrow, because I need to make sure that I got enough in my savings and enough in my investments, whatever else. Listen, you don't even invest aggressively anymore. Because your mentality is, I don't want to lose nothing. Well, it's quiet in here. It's quiet in here because I'm talking to some people who are builders. But you build out of what? Trauma. No. I told you this. I got to stretch his mind, right? So the problem that we have is this. So when we say start businesses, what you see is I might lose my money. And so I won't start. Why? Because I learn and I live off of a risk reduction mentality. Because the kind of people that live in this region come from people who don't want no trouble. and you have been taught by your grandmother and your great-grandmother and your great-great-grandfather to just get you a nice little spot. Sit down somewhere, because you don't want no trouble. When you see people protesting, you say, I'm gonna go out there. Because you don't want no trouble. Am I talking to somebody? See, I'm talking to you. Listen, they said in Genesis 11, come, let us build for ourselves a city, a tower whose top is in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves. Listen, lest we be scattered abroad over the face of the earth. We're going to mess around and be split up. So let's disobey God, be unified, and build. Out of trauma and insecurity.
Thank you for worshiping with us today. If you're in need of prayer or someone to talk to, our online ministers are available for you right now in the chat. And we invite you to join us again for our extraordinary worship services every Sunday at 10:30 a.m., Sunday at 4 p.m., and Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Central, where Dr. Moody teaches how to understand the Bible and you can get your biblical questions answered. We look forward to connecting with you and ask that you subscribe to TheROCKATX on YouTube and follow us on Facebook and Instagram to stay connected to all The Rock is doing. Also, you can connect with us through our website at TheROCKATX.org. Again, thank you for worshiping with us, and be blessed.